Chapter 3, Lesson 3, Subtract Integers. Today you will be able to subtract integers. To subtract an integer, add the opposite, and then follow your addition rules. I will not subtract. I will add the opposite. I want you to say that and write it 3 times. I will not subtract. I will add the opposite. I will not subtract. I will add the opposite. I will not subtract. I will add the opposite. So now let's talk about what that means. Evaluate the following expressions. Well, 6 minus 7. I will not subtract. I will add the opposite. What is the opposite of positive 7? Well, the opposite is negative 7. So I want you to rewrite each expression as an addition expression. So now we have 6 plus negative 7. I have 6 positives. I have 7 negatives. What's left over? Negative 1. Letter B. I will not subtract. I will add the opposite. 8 minus 13 is 8 plus negative 13. So 8 plus negative 13 is negative 5. Negative 20 minus 15. I will not subtract. I will add the opposite. So now I have negative 20 plus negative 15. Same sign, sum. Add them, keep the sign. Negative 35. Letter D. I will not subtract. I will add the opposite. Negative 22 minus 26 is negative 22 plus negative 26. They're both negatives, same sign, sum. Add them and keep the sign. Negative 48. 1 minus negative 2. I will not subtract. I will add the opposite. The opposite of negative 2 is positive 2, so then we just have 1 plus 2, which is 3. Letter F. Negative 10 minus negative 7. I will not subtract. I will add the opposite. The opposite of negative 7 is positive 7. Different signs difference. Subtract and keep the sign of the larger absolute value. 10 minus 7 is 3, but the 10 has the larger absolute value, so I keep the negative sign. The answer is negative 3. Letter G. 4 minus negative 12. I will not subtract. I will add the opposite. The opposite of negative 12 is positive 12, and 4 plus 12 is 16. Letter H. Negative 15 minus negative 5. I will not subtract. I will add the opposite. The opposite of negative 5 is positive 5. Negative 15 plus 5, different signs difference. Subtract and keep the sign of the larger absolute value. 15 minus 5 is 10, but negative 15 has a larger absolute value, therefore the sign is negative. The temperatures on the moon vary from negative 173 degrees Celsius to 127 degrees Celsius. Find the difference between the maximum and minimum temperature. Well, the maximum temperature is 127 degrees Celsius because that's the largest, minus the minimum temperature is negative 173. But I will not subtract. I will add the opposite. The opposite of negative 173 is positive 173. And this one I'm going to add off to the side here. So the difference is 300 degrees Celsius. Evaluate expressions with integers. Plug it in, plug it in. Plug the values for the variables into each expression and then follow the rules for addition and subtraction. Evaluate the following expressions. So we have x minus y. X is negative 6, so in place of x we will put negative 6. Bring down your minus sign, and in place of y we are going to put negative 5. Whenever I have a minus and a negative next to each other, I like to put the negative 5 in parentheses. I will not subtract, I will add the opposite. Different signs difference, subtract, and keep the sign of the larger. So negative 1. Letter B, m minus n. Well, m is negative 15. Bring down the minus sign. N is 8. I will not subtract. I will add the opposite. So negative 15 plus negative 8. Same sign sum. Add them and keep the sign. So negative 23. Evaluate b minus 10 if b equals negative 8. Plug in negative 8 for b. Bring down the minus 10. I will not subtract. I will add the opposite. Same sign sum. Add them. Add them and keep the sign. You get negative 18. Letter D. Evaluate a minus b if a equals 5 and b equals negative 8. 5, bring down the minus sign, and b is negative 8. I will not subtract. I will add the opposite. So we just have 5 plus 8, which is 13. Evaluate c minus a if a equals 5 and c equals negative 9. C is negative 9. Bring down the minus, and a is 5. I will not subtract. I will add the opposite. They're both negatives, same sign sum. Add them and keep the sign. We get negative 14. Letter F. Evaluate q minus r if q is negative 14 and r is negative 6. So q is negative 14. Bring down the minus sign. R is negative 6. But I will not subtract. I will add the opposite. Different signs difference. Subtract. 14 minus 6 is 8. And keep the sign of the larger absolute value, which is negative 14, therefore negative 8. Evaluate negative j plus h minus k if j equals 4, k equals 15, and h equals negative 12. So this one's interesting. We have a negative sign in front of j. So we need to bring down that negative sign and then plug in 4 for j. So now it's negative 4. Bring down the plus. H is negative 12. Bring down the minus. And k is 15. I want to change everything to addition. Well, the first symbol is addition, so I'm going to leave it as that. But then I'm going to change the subtraction sign to addition, but changing that 15 to a negative 15. All three of them have the same sign, so I can add them all and keep the sign. 4 and 12 make 16. 16 and 15 make 31. Keep the sign negative. Negative 31. Letter H. Evaluate k minus j minus h if j equals 4, k equals 15, and h equals negative 12. So k is 15 minus j, which is 4, minus h, which is negative 12. Change all your subtraction signs to addition, but remember to change the next number to the opposite. So I will not subtract, I will add the opposite. And again, I will add the opposite. In this case, we have two positive numbers and a negative number. Take care of those two positive numbers first. They're the same sign, so add them together, and we get 27. And now bring down the plus negative 4. We have different signs, so different signs difference. Subtract and keep the sign of the larger absolute value. 27 has the larger absolute value and it's positive, so our answer is positive 13. Evaluate negative h minus negative 9 if h equals 9. Bring down the negative in front of that h. For h, I'm plugging in 9, and bring down the rest of this problem. I will not subtract. I will add the opposite. They have different signs, so subtract. 9 minus 9 is 0. And with 0, it's neither positive or negative, so it just stays simple 0. Letter J. Evaluate absolute value of h minus j if h equals negative 12 and j equals 4. So absolute value, we have negative 12 minus j, which is 4. I will not subtract. I will add the opposite. So we have negative 12 plus negative 4, which is in fact negative 16. But don't forget about those absolute value bars. The absolute value of negative 16 is positive 16.